In our everyday lives, we make decisions that impact us in various ways. From simple choices like what to eat for dinner and what to wear to work, to the more significant ones like who to befriend and whether to change jobs, there's a universal truth we all face. Everyone has the power of choice. It's a crucial part of our self development, and each decision we make shapes our experiences and brings us to where we are in life. But what if I told you that someone took these concepts and turned them into a game? What if I told you they explored how the power of choice affects our mental state and highlighted the importance of mental health? In 2005, a French company named Quantic Dream released a game that did just that. This game allowed players to make decisions that influenced the plot and the characters' fates, leading to different narrative paths and multiple endings. It embodies the power of choice, where even minor actions have major consequences. Welcome back to the Retro Phantoms Retrospective. Today we're looking at the power of choice with Fahrenheit Indigo Prophecy. If you're just discovering this channel, you're in for a treat. We got a growing catalog of captivating retrospectives that peel back the layers of gaming's most fascinating and influential titles. From unsung gems to celebrated classics, our deep dives offer fresh perspectives that'll ignite your passion for the art form. If you enjoy an engaging retrospective that blends insightful analysis with reverence for its subject matter, mash the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss out on upcoming exploration to the brilliant minds and landmark experiences that have shaped this incredible medium. Let's dive into this. Before we dive into Fahrenheit, let's rewind a bit and talk about David Cage. Born as David de Grottela on June 9, 1969 in Mulhouse, France, he later adopted the pseudonym David Cage. Growing up, he spent a lot of time learning how to play the piano and became quite talented in making music. By the time he was a teenager, he had already entered the music business. At 14, he had his own private studio in Paris, where he composed music for various artists, commercials, and even video games. In 1993, David founded his own company, Totem Interactive, and worked as a freelance musician on several TV, film, and video game projects. Some of his early works included a Speedy Gonzales game, a Time Cop game, and Super Danny. However, around this time, he started losing his passion for making music. But as they say, when one door closes, another one opens. After losing his passion for music, David Cage found a new passion, writing, combined with his love for video games. Shortly after starting Totem Interactive, he decided it was time to start creating the kind of video games that he wanted to play. In 1994, when he wasn't working on music, he was busy writing a script for a game called Nomad Soul. He ended up with a 200-page document. Through some of his clients in the gaming industry, he got feedback on his narrative. They were impressed, but thought the game wasn't possible with the current technology. Despite this, Cage decided to move forward with his plan to make video games. He hired 5 of his closest friends and shifted their relationship from personal to professional. He gave himself a 6-month timeline to create a game, deciding that if he didn't have anything to show by then, he would just go back to making music. With his team, David Cage took 2 sound booths they had and used one for total interactive business and the other for developing the game. Their goal was to build an engine and create a prototype to prove the game could be made. And that's exactly what they did. In 6 months, they managed to create a demo that they all thought was pretty impressive. But even though they were happy with their project, they still didn't have one crucial thing: a publisher. With 6 months up and money running low, the pressure was on. One day, Cage decided to contact Eidos, and surprisingly, they were interested in his demo. He made his way from France to London carrying his giant PC with him. When he arrived and plugged it in, Eidos was impressed with how it worked and wanted to bring Cage and his team on board. After translating the English contract to French and signing it, Cage and his team were finally funded and needed to start development within a month. Now that his team was signed with Eidos, they chose another name to call the company. Cage chose the name Quantic Dream. According to Cage, the meaning was a play on the phrase quantum physics, which in itself is really interesting because the more you study, the more you can explain it. So our name was a mixture of science and magic. With the Nomad Soul, Cage wanted to create a movie-like experience with total immersion and mixed multiple genres. After the development of the Nomad Soul was created, the US market wanted the name to be changed to Omicron the Nomad Soul, which bothered Cage, but this occurrence would be common in the future. Omicron would not do best numbers in the US, and Cage liked to believe it was because of the lack of support of the American market. If you'd ever like to see a retrospective on the Nomad Soul, drop a comment down below. Let's continue.
Wrong. This universe is just as real as yours.
Having finished the first official project, the team was more motivated than ever. Cage wanted to push the boundaries of what games could do once again. Inspired by his work on the Nomad Soul, he aimed to challenge what was considered possible in gaming. Cage began looking at the numbers and demographics of video game players, and to his surprise, he found out the average gamer was 29 years old. This made him wonder why games hadn't evolved along with their audience. In an interview, he said, "I have played video games for 20 years. I've changed over the years as I've gotten older, but I had the feeling the games were still exactly the same as when I was 15. At the time, most games were aimed at 10-year-olds but people buying them were much older, so Cage set out to create something more mature. He believed that games should offer a sense of freedom and expression, allowing developers to innovate rather than remain stagnant. He started developing this game with the idea of creating a compelling story, believing that a great story can captivate audiences. According to Cage, no one has yet understood in this industry the power of a good story and good characters. When you talk to some publishers, they answer what is important, not who the characters are, but what they can do. This is absolutely wrong. The experience is a million times more intense if you can care for the characters, if you know why you are doing something. Cage wanted to expand this narrative idea and have gamers feel a range of emotions throughout the game. He wanted players to experience fear, anger, frustration, and power. After a year of working on his next masterpiece, he ended up with a script that was composed of 2,000 pages. Building on this idea, Quantic Dream pitched the game to Vivendi, a French mass media holding company based in Paris. They were intrigued by the concept and immediately began working on what would become Fahrenheit. Cage's pitch challenged norms by asking questions like, why not create games about interactive storytelling, emotions, and moral dilemmas? Why not integrate these into gaming? Initially, Vivendi loved these ideas and fully greenlit the game. Production began with a fully staffed team. While the first game had only involved Cage and 6 of his close friends, Fahrenheit boasted a team of 80 people, including around 60 actors and stuntmen for animation and voice work. The game was developed simultaneously for 3 platforms, the PlayStation 2, the Xbox, and the PC, using proprietary technologies, engines, and tools. This is where the team developed the Intelligent Adventure Manager, or IAM for short. It's the script tool they use for the game as a proprietary technology originally created for Omicron. The philosophy behind IAM is simple yet powerful. It allows game designers to assemble the game in real time without needing programming skills. The tool operates on a straightforward language that they believe anyone can learn, offering a more graphic interface to input instructions and triggers. IAM played a crucial role in making complex scenes like the dinner sequence feasible with multiple paths and possibilities. Without this tool, managing such intricate scenarios would have been a nightmare. Additionally, IAM handled conversion trees efficiently, a boon considering the game aimed to deliver 3 hours of interactive dialogue across 7 different languages. After about a year of development, there was a significant change in their publishing company, Vivendi. Initially, Vivendi saw potential for Fahrenheit to chart a new course and even create its own genre. However, with less than a year of signing with them, all the key people involved had left the company. Suddenly, Quantic Dream found themselves without anyone to champion their vision and support their project. It became clear that the new staff at Vivendi had little time to grasp this innovative concept. Quantic Dream approached them, emphasizing their belief in the game's potential and the need for a strong publisher support. After a brief search, they found a new partner in Atari, who enthusiastically signed on to publish the game. Under Atari, development ran much smoother. They provided Quantic Dream with valuable feedback and collaborated respectfully to enhance the game. They focused on improving the control system, making the interface more fluid, and increasing the pacing. Initially, the game's pace was slow, but they discovered it worked much better at a faster tempo. With everyone now aligned and focused on improving the game, the next major challenge emerged. As you can see from the title of this video, it's called Fahrenheit Retrospective. But if I made this video years ago, I might have called it Indigo Prophecy Retrospective. If you're from America, this might be the name of the game that you're familiar with. But to be clear, the game's original name is Fahrenheit. However, due to a tragic event in 2001, the game underwent a name change. Here's how David Cage explained it. The game was renamed Indigo Prophecy by Atari for the United States. I guess they were concerned that some people may get confused with Michael Moore's movie Fahrenheit 9/11. This is definitely not the title I would have chosen. This decision sparked numerous disagreements between Quantic Dream and Atari, because Quantic Dream believed the original name should have remained, but Atari had the final say. As the game rolled out, it was branded as Indigo Prophecy. Audiences eagerly anticipated Quantic Dream's second masterpiece. If you were in Europe, you got to experience Fahrenheit on September 16, 2005. However, if you were outside of Europe, including North America, you experienced the game as Indigo Prophecy. Let's dive into how this unfolded.
Rated M for mature.
The world is filled with choices, unlimited possibilities. But sometimes, the hardest choice to make is living with the one choice that was made for you. My name is Lucas Kane, and I'm a murderer. Maybe I should back up a bit. I used to be just like everyone else. Comfortable life, boring IT job, tiny loft apartment, and a steady girlfriend. But that life died with the man in the diner. I didn't want to kill him. I didn't even know him. I was forced to do it, like some kind of puppet. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late, and I knew I had to run. But what if I played things differently? Played it smarter? I could have done a lot of things differently, but would my story have ended the same way? I tried to run, or maybe I didn't. So many choices, each bearing a different consequence on the brain. I tried to lay low, but the migraines, like a spilled yolk swimming inside my skull, pounding. Stay cool, stay calm. They just want to ask you a few questions. So many choices. Two things were obvious right away. There were forces at work beyond anyone's control, and my life had become a living hell because of it. My brother Marcus, he's a priest. He'll know the right choices. Or maybe my girl. Maybe I should have kept it all to myself. Maybe things would have been different if I never involved anyone. The truth was, I was changing, and they couldn't do anything to help that. Something untold was at play, and I was right at the center of it all. It started when they made me a murderer, but could I make it right? Could I make it out alive? I just had to make the right choices.
Here's a quick spoiler alert, as I'm about to tell a story about Fahrenheit/Indigo Prophecy. If you're not a fan of spoilers, please advance to the gameplay overview section as seen on the timeline below. Let's dive into this. The game kicks off on a snowy night in New York City at a local diner called Doc's. Inside, a man is using a urinal when suddenly one of the bathroom stalls, the main character, Lucas Kane, starts having a possession episode. He's holding a bloody knife and carving marks into his arms. The man at the urinal finishes up and starts washing his hands. Meanwhile, Lucas stands up and slowly walks towards him, stabbing him 3 times. Just before snapping out of his possessed state, Lucas sees a young girl reaching out to him. Then he comes back to his senses and realizes what he has done. Panicking, he tries to hide the body, cleans his hands, and makes his way out of the diner. Lucas has the option to either take the cab or catch the subway. As he leaves, an off-duty cop named McCarthy finds the body in the stalls and calls for reinforcements.
Nobody goes anywhere. A crime has just been committed. I'm going to have to ask you to stay calm and wait here for the police to arrive and check your IDs.
Back at Doc's diner, 2 officers are called in to check out the situation. Enter Carla Valenti and Tyler Miles. They arrive at the diner where Carla questions a waitress named Kate. Through the questioning, they learn that the man who was killed in the bathroom is named John Winston. Kate agrees to come by the station later to help sketch out the suspect. Carla and Tyler continue their investigation, finding Lucas's book, The Tempest, on the ground, along with a coffee and a soft drink at the table. They make their way to the bathroom where the crime took place and quickly realize something about this crime seems off. They find the weapon used and have another officer check everything for fingerprints. After verifying the crime scene, Tyler and Carla get in their car and drive off into the snowy night. Back at Lucas's apartment, he's having his own nightmare. Unable to shake off the events of the previous night, he finds it hard to believe that he could have done something so terrible. It's not until he sits up and looks at his arms and realizes it wasn't a dream, it actually happened. As he leaves his room, he gets a phone call from his brother Marcus, and they make plans to meet up at half an hour to talk about the previous night. Lucas heads to the bathroom where he cleans and covers his bloody arms. When he closes the medicine cabinet, he catches a quick glimpse of John's ghost in the reflection. Jolting with guilt, he turns around to find no one there. Lucas starts experiencing premonitions. He envisions a police officer coming to his apartment and arresting him because of his bloody items. Just then, he hears a knock at the door, confirming his vision might come true. Quickly, Lucas hides the bloody items around his apartment. When the police arrive and find nothing suspicious, he leaves, and Lucas later heads to meet up with his brother.
Thank you for your cooperation. Sorry to have bothered you, sir. You know how it is. With everything that's been going on, we prefer to be careful.
I understand.
Go on, Mr. Kane.
At the park, Lucas meets up with his brother Marcus, who is a priest. Lucas tells Marcus about the crime he committed the previous night. Initially skeptical, Marcus eventually believes his brother and promises to do what he can to help. He even tries to give Lucas a cross for protection on his journey. As Lucas leaves his brother, he has another premonition, this time about a kid who was falling through ice. While rushing to save the child, Lucas notices Officer McCarthy from the diner walking in the park. Lucas saves the kid and performs CPR, bringing him back to life. After saving the child, Lucas and McCarthy lock eyes. Instead of arresting him, McCarthy lets Lucas go. Confused but relieved, Lucas doesn't question it and heads to work.
Patrol 324. Kid just fell into the water. Send an ambulance right away.
Man, what courage. The kid would have died. That guy's a hero.
He dove into freezing water to save the kid. The kid never would have made it out if there without him.
The cop recognized me. We both knew it. It's hard to say why he didn't turn me in. Maybe he decided I was even. I had taken a life and given one back. Nothing really changed for me. I was still wanted for murder by the police. But when I left that park, I knew I could look myself in the mirror again without cringing.
At the police station, Carla heads to her office. Before going inside, Garrett tells her he has the test results from the crime last night. She enters her office and checks her emails. In her inbox, she finds an email from an unknown person saying it's all happened before, Kirsten. This raises her suspicion, so she closes her emails and searches Kirsten in the database only to find the case is classified. Carla then calls Tyler, who's in bed sleeping. He gets up and heads to the bathroom while his girlfriend Sam makes some coffee. After getting dressed, Tyler and Sam have a back and forth about his job, as she is worried about him. He kisses her and leaves for the police station. Once at the station, Tyler hangs up his coat and heads to Garrett's desk. Garrett informs him about the blood and the roof belonged to the suspect, and that they have more of his DNA, including fingerprints found at the scene. After meeting with Garrett, Carla and Tyler go their separate ways and continue the investigation.
So, what do we do now?
You go take care of the composite. I'm gonna go check with the coroner and see if he got anything from the body.
Okay. Catch you later.
Back to Lucas, who's at work, puking his guts out in the bathroom, trying to have a normal day. In his office, he starts having premonitions and suddenly can read minds. He reads his coworker's mind, which leaves him confused. He then starts hallucinating, seeing the word murderer flash on his computer screen, causing him to panic. After pulling himself together, Lucas gets a phone call from his ex-girlfriend, Tiffany, who tells him she's coming over later to pick up her stuff. After the call, he has a premonition about a coffee cup spilling and watches as it actually spills over. A coworker there receives a call about a terminal needing some work, and Lucas volunteers to handle it. As Lucas heads to the terminal and starts completing the task, he sees a virtual bug and begins to panic again. After evading the insects, he is confronted by the ghost of John Winston, the man he killed. Winston warns Lucas about a serpent that resides in the other world. Lucas snaps out of it and leaves work, worried about what might be in store for him next.
Faces of the same serpent, one in our world, the other in the other world. Woe to he who sees both sides of the snake.
No! No!
Lucas? Lucas, what happened?
Ah!
Did you hear me? Are you all right?
Hey, you've hurt yourself. You're bleeding.
I gotta go. I didn't have the slightest idea what had happened. The one thing I do know, those things almost killed me.
At the police station, Tyler meets with the waitress Kate to create a sketch of the man she saw leaving the diner the night John was killed. After finishing the sketch, Kate leaves the office. Meanwhile, Carla is at the morgue examining John's body and drawing conclusions about the crime. She notices that the wounds inflicted on Winston were oddly specific, with the arteries sharply cut. The coroner informs her that the cause of death matches previous cases involving Alan Kirsten.
I saw a case like this once before. It was a while back now, in the 90s, I think. Exactly the same. 3 stabs around the heart, each one cutting a main artery. It really struck me at the time. I wondered how such a thing were possible. It was the, what was that name again? Karsten or Kirsten, something like that.
Kirsten.
Yes, that's it, Kirsten. You know about that case?
Not yet. I'm sure as hell gonna find out.
Back in Lucas's apartment, he waits for Tiffany to arrive. Eventually, she rings the bell, and Lucas lets her in. What happens next depends on the player's choices. Lucas can either let Tiffany go after a failed attempt at kissing her, or he can successfully sway her and take her to bed. Regardless of the outcome, the night always ends the same. Lucas wakes up abruptly and heads out of his room. To his shock, he finds his front door ajar. As he checks the hallway, he once again sees a little girl from his vision at the beginning of the game. He then wakes up in his bed, realizing it was all just a dream.
Girl again. She seems so real. I must be losing my mind.
You okay, Lucas?
I'm fine, Tiffany. I'm just fine.
The following day, Lucas heads to the cemetery with his brother Marcus to visit their parents' grave. As they stand there paying their respects, Lucas relives a childhood memory from when they lived at the Wichita military base. In his memory, Marcus and some friends were playing hide and seek in a hangar. Lucas, staying behind, has a premonition that the hangar is about to catch fire and the boys won't make it. Rushing to Hangar 4, Lucas warns his brother and the other boys just in time, saving them from the fire. After the event, he talks with Marcus about what happened, and the story shifts back to the present. Adult Marcus then informs Lucas about a woman who might be able to help him.
Lucas, are you hurt?
No, just a few scratches.
And the others?
I managed to warn them in time.
They all got out.
How did you know it was going to happen, Lucas?
I saw it. I saw it before it happened. Don't ask me how.
You know they'll never believe that.
I know.
Lucas? Are you alright, Lucas? Lucas, can you hear me? I did a little checking around, without giving your name, obviously. I was told about a person who is familiar with, let's say, unusual phenomena. I think that maybe she could help you. Here, this is her address. You know that I don't believe in any of this, Lucas, but I sincerely hope that she can give you some kind of answer.
I hope so too.
Back at the station, Carla and Tyler meet with the police chief to brief him on the case. Afterward, they decide to split up and investigate further. Tyler heads to investigate the book while Carla heads to the basement of the police station to search through old cases. In the basement, Carla battles her claustrophobia and reaches the terminal where she looks up information on Kirsten. Unfortunately, the file is empty, but she discovers the name of the detective involved with the case, Robert Mitchell. Meanwhile, Tyler visits a local bookshop where he learns the book was a gift. After leaving, a piece of paper falls out the book, providing him with a new clue.
A torn piece of paper. Looks like a computer printout of a bunch of numbers. Fell out of the book. Must have been a bookmark. I'll check it out at the office.
As Lucas arrives at Agatha's house, recommended by his brother, he explains his situation to her. He discovers that Agatha is a spiritual medium who offers to help him. Agatha puts Lucas into a trance to help him relive the night of the murder. This time, Lucas experiences the events from the perspective of the man who possessed him. He sees the man sit down and order coffee, shocked that only Lucas can see him. Next, the man performs a quick incantation that leads to Lucas being possessed. Lucas follows the man outside, where he encounters the ghost of John once again. Suddenly breaking out of Agatha's trance, Lucas questions her, but Agatha denies any knowledge, leaving Lucas skeptical. She advises him to leave and promises more information the next night.
You know who that man was, don't you, Agatha?
No, I don't know. I'm not sure who he is.
Yes, you do know who he is. You understood it all as soon as you felt the scars on my arms. What do these symbols mean, Agatha? Tell me what that man's done to me.
You should go now, Lucas. There's nothing more that I can do for you.
You could at least explain what the hell's happening to me. He made me kill a man. I want to know. I need to know.
I have to verify certain things. There's nothing more I can tell you today. Come back tomorrow night at the same time. I'll explain more then.
Back at the shooting range at the police station, Carla meets with Robert Mitchell to discuss the Kirsten case. He recounts the story of Alan Christian being fatally stabbed in a shopping center, with the perpetrator still present when the police arrived. Reviewing the coroner's report, Mitchell notes that the precision cuts to Kirsten's arteries, calling it a rare occurrence. Carla remarks on the eerie similarities between this case and the one she's currently investigating. Mitchell informs her that the Kirsten killer is now in Bellevue Asylum. He reveals that similar events have occurred multiple times before the case was classified and closed. Mitchell warns Carla about the case's complexities, but she insists on continuing her investigation.
When I got here and first mentioned the case to you, you knew the file had been classified. Tell me, how'd you know that?
Every one of the files on those killings was locked up tight without anybody even checking for links between them. Strange, don't you think? You should drop this one, Detective. This is not just a murder case. There's something very odd going on behind the scenes.
Looks like I'll be starting a new file.
Back at Lucas's apartment, he answers the phone and hears the same man from the dinner reciting an incantation. Suddenly, the eerie apartment starts to collapse around him, with objects becoming weapons aimed at Lucas. He dodges everything thrown at him and manages to escape outside, only for the ground to give way beneath him. Lucas finds himself hanging from a ledge, barely holding on. In the nick of time, his brother Marcus, who had come to visit him, arrives and pulls Lucas to safety. Marcus questions Lucas' sanity and becomes increasingly concerned for his brother's well-being.
Lucas, for God's sake, have you lost your mind? What's come over you?
The walls were blown away, and the wind, the tempest,
Why did you do this, Lucas? Why?
Somebody tried to kill me.
For heaven's sake, Lucas, there's no one else here but you and I. You were all alone when I arrived. All alone, Lucas.
What's happening to me, Marcus? I don't know what's happening.
It'll be all right, Lucas. Everything will be fine. I'm gonna help you. You'll see.
While Lucas and Marcus were having a heart-to-heart moment, Carla and Tyler continued their investigation. Tyler remained at the police station trying to decipher the significance of the piece of paper he found in the book. He faxed it over to Carla and waited for her analysis. Meanwhile, Carla was home examining the paper Tyler sent. Her neighbor Tommy dropped by, and they shared a glass of wine. Tommy, known for reading fortunes, glanced at the paper and pointed out that they appeared to be stock quotes. He mentioned that there might be a watermark that could be traced back to the bank. Carla immediately called Tyler to inform him the paper was from the bank. Tyler held it up to the light and indeed found the watermark, tracing it back to the bank. They decided that either Carla or Tyler would visit the bank the next day to further investigate.
I think I found it.
Tyler?
I've got the code. You should have no trouble identifying which bank it corresponds to.
This time we've got our killer. I think I'll pay a little visit to the bank tomorrow.
You want me to go?
No, I'd rather go myself if you don't mind. I'd like to see what our boy looks like. We'll meet afterwards at the station and compare notes. See you tomorrow, Tyler.
Okay, see you then, Carla.
Back at the bank where Lucas works, he's at his desk when he starts having premonitions about either Tyler or Carla, depending on the player's choice. As they approach his office, Lucas quickly hides the incriminating evidence, a torn page with the stock quotes and a book given to him by Marcus. After hiding the evidence, Lucas is questioned by either Carla or Tyler. He uses his ability to read minds to answer the questions effortlessly. However, during the interrogation, he begins to see virtual bugs again, causing him to freak out momentarily. Despite this, he manages to answer a few more questions before excusing himself and heading to the bathroom to regain his composure. While Lucas is away, the chosen officer snoops around his office and discovers the hidden paper and book. Lucas returns to find the officer, who lets him go without further incident.
Feeling better?
Yes, thanks.
I don't have any more questions. I'll let you get back to work. Thank you for your cooperation, sir.
Later that night, Lucas returns to Agatha's house, hoping to learn more about the situation. As he enters her room, he discovers Agatha lying lifeless on the ground, with a phone off the hook that had dialed 911. In another room filled with crows, Lucas finds a news article describing a murder that closely matches his own circumstances. He takes his paper and quietly leaves to the back window as police arrive to investigate the 911 call at Agatha's house.
New York Police. Anybody there? Hey, Kevin, call an ambulance. There's a body on the floor.
Back at the police station, Carla works late into the night, piecing together clues to identify the killer. Just as she's making progress, McCarthy enters and informs her that he encountered the killer, who had saved a boy from drowning. After McCarthy leaves, Carla continues her investigation, needing one more piece of evidence to draw a conclusion. The player can choose to compare the books or show the sketch to McCarthy. It's up to you. Once she reaches her conclusion, Carla calls Tyler to inform him that Lucas Kane is their prime suspect. Meanwhile, Lucas heads home. He once again sees through the eyes of a possessed man. He witnesses the man performing a spell on someone working at a laundromat. Then, through the possessed man's eyes, he watches the man delete a woman on the phone. Afterwards, the little girl from Lucas' visions appears once more.
Sorry, we're closed. Come back tomorrow.
Oh, I won't be long. Naster Natilan, Ekibini, Nasaquen, Castanecli, Quanticlana, Requentana. At Lucas' apartment building, Tyler and Carla investigate and discover bizarre cult-like decorations, including a pentagram on the floor. They realize Lucas isn't home, but they get word that he's running across the street. As Lucas walks towards the apartment door, he has another premonition, this time about Carla and Tyler being inside his apartment. Suddenly, a group of policemen confront him and move to arrest him. Using his newfound supernatural powers, Lucas manages to evade the officers and escape from Carla and Tyler's pursuit.
Did you see what that guy just did? Shit, that's crazy.
We need to catch him. Next time, he won't get away.
Back at the police station, both Tyler and Carla receive a stern reprimand from the police chief regarding the Lucas situation, but he shuts down any attempts to argue their case. As they leave the chief's office, a fellow officer informs them that Lucas's fingerprints were found at Agatha's house and that another similar crime had occurred, a murder resembling the one Lucas saw at the laundromat. Carla and Tyler rush to the laundromat, where they discover the killer already dead, marked with snake-like carvings in his arm. The victim had been stabbed 3 times, with her arteries cut precisely as previous cases. Carla suspects a connection and decides to visit Anton Janos at Bellevue Asylum for more answers. As Carla heads to her car, she questions everything she has seen and knows, wondering if Lucas could truly be involved in these crimes.
Let's go. I've seen enough. What are we supposed to think about this murder? The guy committed suicide after killing the woman? Seems absurd, but it's the only explanation. I don't think Kane had anything to do with what happened at the laundrette. But all the same, there's got to be a link between the 2 murders.
With nowhere else to turn, Lucas seeks sanctuary with his brother Marcus at his church. There, Lucas is visited by the ghost of Agatha, who warns him of imminent danger. She urges Lucas about the Quetzalcoatl and to find the Indigo Child. Agatha reveals that the man who possessed him at the diner is known as the Oracle, and she shares some information about the ancient Mayan civilization before disappearing. Suddenly, Lucas finds himself fighting angels in the church. As they corner him, he awakes abruptly to find Marcus asking him what's troubling him. Marcus insists that Lucas needs to turn himself in, but Lucas avoids the topic. Instead of filling him in on what's happening, they have a tense back and forth until Marcus finally tells Lucas
he can't stay at the church because it's not safe. They'll come for him there. Lucas walks away as Marcus turns his back on him. As a fugitive, Lucas seeks refuge in Tiffany's new apartment, managing to find a moment of rest. While watching TV, he catches a report about a Mayan expert, Dmitry Kurakan, sensing this might hold the answers to his questions. Tiffany returns home, and depending on the player's choices, she either embraces Lucas and declares her love for him, or remains skeptical and demands an explanation, questioning if Lucas will be capable of such acts. Lucas insists on his innocence, determined to uncover the truth and clear his name. Just as tensions rise, Tyler and the police arrive at the apartment to question Tiffany and search for Lucas. He manages to evade them successfully and continues his journey towards the museum, driven to unravel the mysteries haunting him.
Thank you for your cooperation, miss. If Kane does try to recontact you, please call me right away. Here's my card. Be careful, miss. Kane's a very dangerous man.
Carla arrives at Bellevue Asylum and meets with Janos to discuss the murders. Janos reveals that all the killers, like him, were manipulated by a mysterious figure known as the Oracle, who was affiliated with a group called the Orange Clan. He recounts the events at the laundromat, shocking Carla when he reveals that he can see through the Oracle's eyes. According to Janos, he didn't commit the murders, the Oracle did, leaving no trace of himself behind. Janos explains that the killings are part of the Oracle's quest to find the Indigo Child. Carla becomes increasingly uneasy with this revelation and decides to leave.
Do you want to know what my drawings mean? The response to all questions. The beginning of the end. The Alpha and the Omega. All will end there.
Lucas arrives at the museum to meet with Kurakan, posing as a journalist to interview him about the Quetzalcoatl. Kurakan explains that the Quetzalcoatl is a Mayan deity depicted as a two-headed snake existing between our world and the other world. Lucas realizes the symbol carved into his arm matches the image of the Quetzalcoatl. During the interview, Kurakan describes a Mayan sacrificial ritual involving an oracle who possesses a random person known as the Executor. The Executor carries out the ritual by stabbing and severing the victim's arteries, opening a portal to the other world and revealing visions of the future. Lucas realizes this ritual mirrors what happened to him at Doc's Diner. As suspicions grow, Kurakan recognizes Lucas's face from a wanted poster and a confrontation ensues. Regardless of Lucas's actions, he must flee the museum and faces an attack in the parking lot. With Kurakan's help, they manage to escape, but their getaway interrupted by assailants and cars. Lucas returns to Kurakan, who in his final moments reveals a prophecy to Lucas. As Lucas leaves, he experiences another mental encounter with the Oracle.
Professor!
The Codex speaks of the coming of a child, a prophet, the answer to all life's questions. The Oracle kills to find the child.
Lucas loses consciousness and wakes up in an unfamiliar place that resembles a tropical jungle. There, he confronts the Oracle, who insists Lucas must be eliminated because he possesses dangerous knowledge linking them together. The Oracle reveals Lucas possesses the Chroma, the cosmic force that birthed the universe, granting him extraordinary abilities. Transforming into a panther, the Oracle hunts Lucas down. Just as the Oracle closes in, Agatha intervenes and rescues Lucas. She urgently advises him to find the Indigo Child, whom Lucas has seen in his visions and who must be protected from the Oracle at all costs.
But how...
Listen closely, Lucas. Those who employ the Oracle are searching for a little girl, a perfectly pure soul that's never been incarnated. Her coming was foretold by the most ancient prophecy in human history. She's the one you see in your dreams. You must find her before the Oracle does and put her someplace safe. Hurry, there isn't much time and they are already back on your trail.
While staying in the hotel, Lucas experiences visions of the Oracle being chastised by his leaders for revealing his true nature to Lucas. The Oracle acknowledges that Lucas was protected while in the other world and suspects another clan's involvement. In order to deal with Lucas, the Oracle is seen planning his next move. Lucas suddenly awakens, realizing he's seeing through the Oracle's eyes and witnessing Marcus is in danger at the cathedral. He urgently calls Marcus and warns him about the imminent threat. Meanwhile, Carla and Tyler arrive at the hotel to arrest Lucas. Despite initially struggling to locate him, they realize Lucas has slipped away once again, leaving them frustrated. As Lucas emerges from hiding, he receives a desperate call from Tiffany, pleading for his help. The Oracle interrupts, threatening Lucas and demanding they meet in the abandoned fun fair if he wants to save Tiffany.
Lucas, you have to come over right now. They'll kill me if you don't come. I have the older news report. Please.
You must realize now that I am not joking. So please, don't delay.
Lucas follows the ominous call to the fun fair, where Tiffany awaits atop a roller coaster. He cautiously approaches and begins untying her, but the moment is shattered as the Oracle appears, destroying the platform beneath them. They plummet, narrowly escaping the Oracle's grasp. Back with the Orange Clan, the leaders commend the Oracle for dealing with Lucas and instruct him to locate the Indigo Child to fulfill his mission. Meanwhile, Lucas experiences a flashback to a troubling moment at the Washita base with Marcus, hinting at secrets uncovered. Returning to the present, Lucas meets Carla at Tiffany's grave. He appears different, no longer wearing his coat, despite the snow. They discuss recent events and Lucas earnestly defends his innocence, revealing details about the Mayan Oracle and the Orange Clan. Carla, having spoken with Janos earlier, recognizes some of these truths in Lucas' story and begins to believe him. Carla extends her hand in agreement, forming an alliance with Lucas, now hiding out at Carla's apartment. They grow closer, sharing more than just a fight against the Oracle and search for the Indigo Child. With resolve, Lucas heads to an orphanage to rescue the Indigo Child, a young orphan named Jade. Despite successfully saving her, Lucas faces off against the Oracle in a fierce battle, drawing on his newfound understanding of his powers. Lucas manages to hold his own against the Oracle and escapes with Jade in a tow. However, Lucas's relief is short-lived as he encounters Agatha, who reveals a startling truth. She resurrected Lucas after his fall with Tiffany at the fun fair. Lucas learns that he is essentially a walking corpse, explaining his lack of sensitivity to cold and the absence of breath when he speaks. To add to the surrealism, Agatha discloses that she is a cyborg, a part of an artificial intelligence clan known as the Purple Clan. As Lucas grapples with this revelation, the Purple Clan attempts to capture him. In the chaos, soldiers from the Orange Clan intervene, leading to a tense confrontation between rival factions.
Get up, Lucas! Hurry!
Quickly! Over here!
Lucas and Carla find themselves in the underground subway where they encounter Bogart, a familiar vagrant who's been popping up throughout their journey. Turns out this guy is not just some random homeless dude. He's actually a leader of the Invisibles, a group that has been keeping tabs on the Purple and Orange clans. Bogart drops a bombshell on Lucas. Jade, the Indigo Child, needs to be connected to a master chroma source to deliver her message. And get this, whoever hears that message gains the ultimate power and can basically rule the world. Talk about high stakes. Lucas, being the stand-up guy he is, agrees to take Jade to the Washida military base the next day. After all this heavy info, he crashes in an abandoned train car, with Carla joining him soon after. They have this intense heart-to-heart about how the world might be ending soon, what with the crazy cold front and all. Carla gets real for a moment, saying that she wishes they met under different circumstances. It's a bittersweet moment, you know? Then, in true end-of-the-world fashion, they confess their love for each other, and well, just say things get steamy in that train car. And this is happening while it's negative 67 degrees Fahrenheit outside. Talk about hot and cold. But the drama doesn't stop there. Right after that passionate moment, Lucas has one of his visions. This one's a doozy. It reveals he was exposed to the chroma's radiation while he was still in his mother's womb.
Everybody ever came near that thing and they all checked.
He knew the hangar was going to burn, John. I'm sure of it. But he wasn't the one who started the fire.
Look, Mary, that's just not possible, and you know it. Nobody can see things before they happen.
That artifact emitted a kind of radiation that we still don't understand. Maybe it changed something in Lucas.
That's nonsense. We analyzed everybody who ever came near that thing, and they all checked out fine. Don't you see? If it was the artifact, then we'd all be radiated, and we'd all have powers.
There's a difference, John. I was pregnant with Lucas when I went for the first time. Lucas was radiated by the artifact when he was still in the womb.
This is just ridiculous, Mary. I've heard enough. I'm going to take a walk while you calm down. Lucas? What are you doing there? Lucas? Lucas?
The next day, Lucas and Carla make their way to the military base with Jade in tow. It's showtime. Lucas is holding Jade, steps into the base, comes face to face with the Oracle. What follows is an epic showdown between Lucas and the Oracle. Lucas manages to get the upper hand, and in a twist of fate sends the Oracle tumbling down the chroma. But the action doesn't stop there. Insert the Cyborg, ready to duke it out with Lucas for control of Jade. It's man versus machine, and Lucas proves he's got more than just looks going on for him. He overpowers the Cyborg, showing that sometimes the old-fashioned human touch triumphs technology. With the baddies out of the way, Lucas takes Jade to the chroma source for the moment of truth. Jade delivers her message, but at terrible cost. She doesn't make it. It's a bittersweet victory to say the least. Fast forward a few months, we find Lucas chilling in a sunny field. He's got a lot on his mind. The good news, the nasty cold that was threatening the earth has went away, gone. And the Purple Clan, history. But now he's wrestling with a big decision. What to do with Jade's message? Use it to help humanity or pretend it never happened? And get this, remember that moment Lucas and Carla spent in Bogart's train? Well, it looks like they got a little souvenir from that night. Carla's pregnant, but here's a kicker. Their unborn child got a dose of the chroma radiation during their final showdown. Lucas is convinced that this means their child is destined to be the next Indigo Child.
The cold went away just like it had come, in silence, as if the Indigo Child had turned the hourglass by delivering her message. Everything was just as it was before. I guess that means the lesser evil. The Oracle and the Orange Clan went back to their places of power in the secret government of the world, and the Purple Clan went back to haunting us on the net. I should be happy, I guess. I've been living with Carla for 3 months. She's the best thing that's happened to me in a long time. Yesterday, she told me that she's pregnant. Must have been that night in Bogart's underground base. That means that our child was radiated by the chroma at Washida, just like I was in my mother's womb. I don't know what's going to happen now. I'm the one and only keeper of the greatest secret in the universe. What should I do with all that power? Forget it? Put it in the service of humanity? I've never dreamt about being God. I just want to live my life like anybody else, with my wife and my child. I'm afraid that destiny might have another path in mind for me.
What are you thinking about, Luke?
Oh, nothing. Nothing at all.
Now, there are alternate endings to the story. What I just covered was the scenario where the Invisibles emerge victorious. However, you can achieve an ending where either the Orange Clan or the Purple Clan prevails. Here's what happens if the Orange Clan wins. After defeating Lucas, Carla, and the AI, the Oracle, upon hearing Jay's final message, unexpectedly spares Lucas and Carla. The Oracle believes his victory is sufficient and sees no need to further confront Lucas. Within days, the planet's temperature returns to normal. Lucas and Carla return to New York, anticipating significant changes that failed to materialize. 3 months pass with little observable change for humanity. Lucas, however, remains vigilant, knowing that the Orange Clan's agenda will eventually unfold. Meanwhile, Lucas and Carla continue their bond since their time at Washita military base. Carla reveals she's pregnant, a result of their night in the underground secret base, meaning their child, like Lucas, has been radiated by the chroma at the Washita military base. Lucas ponders uncertainty about the future, striving to maintain normalcy despite sometimes seeing through the Oracle's eyes, understanding their ordeal marks just the beginning.
After a few days, the temperature on the planet went back to normal. The Oracle let us go. I guess his victory was enough, and he didn't feel the need to confront me needlessly. Carla and I went back to New York to await the big changes that were coming. But nothing happened. 3 months after the revelation of the Indigo Child, nothing much had changed for humanity, at least it seemed that way. But I know that one day their plan will reveal itself. Carla and I have been together ever since Washita. Yesterday, she told me that she's pregnant. It must have been that night in Bogart's underground base. That means that our child was radiated by the chroma at Washita, just like I was in my mother's womb. I'm not sure what's going to happen now. Carla and I are trying to lead normal lives as though nothing had ever happened. I still see through the eyes of the Oracle from time to time. I know that what we went through is just the beginning.
What are you thinking about, Lucas?
Oh, nothing. Nothing at all.
Now for the Purple Clan. After defeating Lucas, Carla, and the Oracle, and hearing Jay's final message, the AI allows his group to seize control as the new masters of Earth. The planet's temperature continues to plummet unabated. 3/4 of humanity has perished, with the survivors forced to live underground, constantly hunted by machines. Armed with Jay's revelation, the Purple Clan reigns supreme with unstoppable power. Lucas and Carla find refuge with Bogart and the Invisibles, and Carla remains Lucas's source of strength in these bleak times. Carla reveals she's pregnant, a consequence of their night at the underground secret base, meaning their child, like Lucas, carries a chroma from Washita. Lucas's reputation as a hero among the survivors grows due to the chroma, although their resistance against the Purple Clan remains fairly small. Personally, Lucas hears voices in dreams suggesting that his child with Carla is the second Indigo Child and humanity's savior. Lucas tries not to dwell on this prophecy, focusing instead on protecting his family.
The temperature continues to drop. It doesn't seem like it's ever going to stop. 3/4 of humanity have already perished. The rest are chased night and day by the machines. We're forced to live underground like rats. The Purple Clan are the new masters of the planet. Now that they have the secret of the Indigo Child, nothing has the power to stop them. Carla and I have taken refuge with Bogart and the Invisibles. She's the best thing that's happened to me in a long time. Yesterday she told me that she's pregnant. It must have been that night in Bogart's underground base. That means our child was radiated by the chroma at Washita, just like I was in my mother's womb. The chroma has made me a sort of hero among the humans. We try to damage the AI machines as much as we can, although our chances of victory are obviously pretty small. Even if we could beat them, we'd still have to live underground because of the cold. In my dreams, I hear voices telling me that our child is the next Indigo Child, the savior of humanity. I try not to listen. For the time being, all I care about is protecting my wife and my child.
What are you thinking about, Luke?
Oh, nothing. Nothing at all.
Now that we uncovered the entire narrative and possible outcomes, we need to look at the characters and what this truly means. The game starts as a mere murder mystery, and somehow we end up in a supernatural story that may leave us with more questions than results. But let's talk about the characters. Now, to be honest, this game is oversaturated with many characters, and I will not be covering all of them, but I will be covering the most important ones. Let's start with Lucas Kane. So picture this. Lucas starts off as your average Joe, right? He's working an IT job at a bank in New York, living alone, nothing exciting. But here's where things get wild. He suddenly finds himself caught up in a crazy supernatural mess. One minute he's just living his life, the next he's committing a murder he can't even remember. Talking about a bad day this man's having. Now, here's the thing about Lucas. He's not just your typical hero type. In fact, he's kind of a blank slate at first, which is pretty clever when you think about it. It lets us, the players, really feel shock of what's happening to him. Oh, get this. Lucas is probably an atheist or skeptical about spiritual stuff. He actually tells his brother Marcus, who's a priest, when offered a cross.
Marcus, you know that I don't believe in all that.
Imagine how mind-blowing it must have been for him, suddenly be dealing with all this supernatural craziness. As the story goes on, Lucas starts to change. He's not just a victim anymore. He starts taking charge of his destiny. It's like watching someone grow up right before your eyes, you know? He goes from this ordinary dude to someone who can do some pretty extraordinary things. The really cool part, Lucas becomes even more interesting after he dies. I know it sounds weird, but it's like he goes through this symbolic rebirth or something. So what's the deal with Lucas Kane? Well, he's kind of like a metaphor for the potential we all have inside of us. He shows us that even the most ordinary person can become extraordinary when pushed by crazy circumstances. It's like he's saying, hey, you never know what you're capable of until life throws you a curveball. In the end, Lucas Kane isn't just a character in a game. He's a symbol of transformation, of facing the unknown and finding the strength you'll never know you had. Pretty deep for a video game character that was just an average Joe. Moving on to Carla Valenti. She's an NYPD detective. Think of her as the no-nonsense, tough-as-nails cop you often see in crime dramas, but with some unique twists. First off, Carla's got this intense-driven personality. She's the kind of detective who won't let go of a case until she's cracked it. The game portrays her as a tough cookie, and early on we even see her sparring with her partner Tyler. That gives you a sense of how she can hold her own. But here's where it gets interesting. Carla is not just a one-dimensional tough girl. She's got this really human side to her that makes her relatable. For instance, she's got a pretty severe case of claustrophobia. It's so bad that even going to the police station basement to get some files was like a major ordeal for her. Can you imagine being a cop and being afraid of tight spaces? Talk about a challenge. Now, the game tries to set up Carla as this action hero type, but it doesn't always follow through. There are moments where she struggles in situations you'd expect her to handle easily, like fending off a single mental patient. It's like the game can't quite decide if she's a super cop or just a regular person in over her head. One of the coolest things about Carla is how she fits into the story. She and Tyler are investigating the murder that Lucas Kane committed while under mind control. She's pursuing him, but we as players know there's more to the story than she realizes. Oh, and get this, Carla might end up being Lucas's second love, which becomes a wild revelation in the story. In the end, Carla Valenti is a complex character who's trying to navigate the world that suddenly has gotten a lot weirder than she ever expected. She's tough and determined, but she's also got her vulnerabilities. She's kind of the character that makes you root for her, even when she's working against the main protagonist. Now for Tyler Miles, who is often one of the 3 protagonists in Fahrenheit Indigo Prophecy, working as a police officer for the NYPD alongside Carla Valenti. While he's set up as a main character, we can observe that he is not as impactful as the other characters. Tyler's role in this game is interesting because he's kind of the everyman character. He's a regular cop partnered with the more driven and intense Carla. He's trying to balance his work life with his personal life. The game actually gives you a chance to see this when it lets you choose between answering a work call or staying in bed with his girlfriend Sam. But here's the thing, while Tyler is likable and adds some flavor to the story, he doesn't really drive the plot forward the same way Lucas or Carla does. He's more of a supporting character. Despite being labeled as a protagonist, Tyler's main contribution to the story is providing a different perspective on the investigation. He's more laid back compared to Carla, which creates an interesting dynamic in their partnership. But when it comes to the big supernatural elements of the plot, Tyler takes a backseat. The game tried to give Tyler some depth by showing us his personal life and relationships, but it doesn't quite integrate these elements into the main plot in a meaningful way. It's like the developers wanted to have a third playable character for variety, but didn't fully commit to making him as crucial to the story as Lucas or Carla. In the end, Tyler's character serves more as a foil to Carla and a way to show the normal side of life in contrast to the increasingly bizarre events surrounding Lucas. He's the guy who keeps things grounded, but that also means he doesn't have as much impact on the supernatural aspects of the story that ultimately drive the plot. Now, the Oracle is basically the big bad of the story. Think of him as the puppet master pulling all the strings behind the scenes. There's this mysterious hooded figure with some serious creepy powers. Here's the kicker. The Oracle is the one who kicks off the plot by possessing Lucas Kane and making him commit that murder in the beginning of the game, starting things off with a bang. Now, the Oracle isn't just some run-of-the-mill villain. They've got these supernatural abilities that are pretty mind-blowing. We're talking possession for starters. But that's not all. They're also on this big quest to find something called the Indigo Child. What's an Indigo Child, you may ask? Well, it's supposed to be this little girl with a perfectly pure soul who's never been incarnated, which is pretty important to the story. So, the Oracle's whole deal is tied up in some pretty wild mythology. There's this talk about Mayan theology and a big influence on the game's story. So we're not just dealing with your average criminal mastermind here. We're talking ancient mystical forces at work. What makes the Oracle such a great antagonist is how they force Lucas, and by extension the player, to question everything. You start by thinking you're playing this murder mystery, and suddenly you're knee-deep in this supernatural conspiracy. In the end, the Oracle is more than just a villain. They're the catalyst that transforms the entire story from a gritty crime drama into something much weirder and more complex. Love it or hate it, you gotta admit, they certainly keep things interesting. So Jade, this kid is something else, I'm telling you. She's not just any ordinary little girl. She's what they call the Indigo Child in the game. And boy, does she stir up some trouble. Picture this, a small, frail-looking girl who's supposed to have this pure soul and know the meaning of life, which is heavy stuff for a kid, am I wrong? And get this, she grew up in an orphanage in New York, but nobody has a clue how she's got there. Very mysterious beginnings. Now, here's where things get really weird. Jade's supposed to be autistic, and she's got some serious strange quirks, like she doesn't eat, drink, sleep unless someone asks her. But here's the kicker, she's totally fine. And did I mention, she doesn't speak? Not a word. The nuns at the orphanage have never heard her say a word. You could imagine. But here's the real deal. Everyone wants to get their hands on this kid. The Orange Clan, the Invisibles, the Purple Clan, they're all after her because they think she's the key to reshaping the world. In the end, Jade's like this walking silent mystery that turns the whole game on its head. She takes the story from whodunit to who's going to control the fate of the world. Pretty wild for a little girl who doesn't say a word. Moving on. So Agatha is this elderly blind woman who lives in a cozy little house filled with birds. But don't let her age and blindness fool you. She's got some serious psychic abilities. Lucas Kane, our main guy, goes to see her after the whole murder incident at the diner because he needs answers. And boy, does Agatha deliver. When Lucas first meets her, Agatha comes off as this wise, almost mystical figure. She uses her psychic powers to help Lucas understand the supernatural forces at play. It's like she's the bridge between the normal world and the crazy, mystical stuff that's happening. She tells Lucas about the Indigo Child and the ancient prophecies, which really sets the stage for the rest of the game. But here's where things get even more interesting. Agatha warns Lucas that the people who made him commit the murder, the ones from the Orange Clan, are after the Indigo Child. She even drops knowledge about the Quetzalcoatl, adding another layer of ancient mythology into the mix. It's like she's this foundation of exotic wisdom. Now, Agatha's story takes a dark turn. She's killed by an unknown assailant, whether it be the Orange Clan or the Purple Clan, the answer is still unknown. It's a pretty brutal move, and it shows how ruthless these factions are. Even in death though, Agatha's influence is felt. Her guidance helps Lucas navigate the treacherous path he's on. In essence, Agatha is like the Yoda of Fahrenheit Indigo Prophecy. She's this wise and mystical mentor who helps the hero understand his place in a much larger, more complex world. Her presence adds a lot of depth to the story, blending the supernatural with the everyday in a way that's both eerie and fascinating. Although I must say, I question if she was just an honest woman that was killed and revived, or was she part of the Purple Clan the entire time? But that's beside the point. While Agatha might seem like just a side character at first, she's actually a key player in unraveling the game's mysteries. Her psychic insights and tragic fate pushes Lucas forward in his journey, making her an unforgettable part of the story. Now, those were the most important characters to the overall narrative. Now that we understand the important aspects of each character, it's time to go over the societies that were involved in the story. Starting with the Orange Clan. So the Orange Clan is this ancient society that has been pulling the strings behind the scenes for centuries. Think of them as your typical shadowy organization, but with the supernatural twist. Here's the deal with these guys. They're all about power and control. Their goal, they want their hands on the Indigo Child. If you're wondering why, well, they believe whoever controls the Indigo Child will basically have the power to reshape the world, which is some high stakes, right? Now, the Orange Clan isn't just sitting around twiddling their thumbs. They're the ones behind those creepy Mayan rituals we see in the game. You know, the ones where they sacrifice people every 7 years? Yeah, that's their handiwork. They think these rituals will help them find the Indigo Child. It's pretty dark stuff. The Oracle we talked about earlier, he's actually working for the Orange Clan. So when he possesses Lucas and makes him commit that murder at the start of the game, that's all part of the Orange Clan's grand plan. What makes the Orange Clan interesting is how they represent this clash between ancient mysticism and modern day conspiracy theories. They're like the Illuminati, but with Mayan magic thrown in for good measure. In the grand scheme of the game's story, the Orange Clan serves as this looming threat. They're always there in the background, pushing events forward and raising the stakes. They're what turns the game from a murder mystery into this epic battle for the fate of the world. So yeah, the Orange Clan is pretty out there, but they're a big part of what makes Fahrenheit such a wild ride. They're the reason everything goes from who committed the murder to who's going to control the fate of humanity. They truly escalate the narrative. So the Purple Clan. These guys are pretty wild. They're not your average secret society. We're talking about a group of artificial intelligences. Yeah, that's right, you heard that right, AI villains. These tech-savvy troublemakers are in a race against the Orange Clan to get their hands on the Indigo Child. Why? Well, they want to reshape the world just like others. Classic AI behavior, am I right? It's like Skynet decided to take a vacation in New York and really get into mysticism. The Purple Clan adds this whole high-tech twist to the supernatural shenanigans going on in the game. We see how powerful this clan truly is when they revive Lucas from his death. If we look at his resurrection scene, we can hear and get an idea of who they are and what they do.
That's it. It's over. Now there's nothing to do but wait, though it shouldn't be long. Perfect. All has gone according to plan.
I sense another signal.
Cerebral spinal activity. I think he's dreaming.
Their presence in the story really ramps up the conflict. It's not just ancient mystical forces at work anymore. Now we've got futuristic AI throwing their hat into the ring too. And one of the game's endings, these digital deposits actually manage to take over. The world turns into this bleak machine-ruled wasteland. So yeah, the Purple Clan is this perfect blend of high-tech threat and supernatural mystery. They take the game's already bonkers plot and crank it up to 11. Who would have thought artificial intelligence would be so interested in ancient prophecies and mystical children? Am I right? So the Invisibles are this group of homeless people in New York City, but they're not just ordinary homeless folks. They're actually a secret society who knows a ton about supernatural events in the game. Think of them as an underground network for wisdom and knowledge. The leader of the Invisibles is a guy named Bogart. He's this grizzled, street-smart character who helps Lucas and Carla navigate the complex web of conspiracies involving the Orange Clan and the Purple Clan. Bogart and his crew are like the unsung heroes working behind the scenes to help keep the balance between these two powerful factions. What's really interesting about the Invisibles is how they blend into the background of the city. They're always there, watching and gathering information, but most people don't even notice them. It's like they're hiding in plain sight, which is pretty clever when you think about it. The Invisibles play a crucial role in the story, especially when it comes to the Indigo Child. They're the ones who help Lucas and Carla bring the Indigo Child to the Washita military base, which is a key part of the game's climax. Without their help, our protagonists would be pretty lost. In a way, the Invisibles represent the idea that sometimes the most valuable allies are the ones you least expect. They're not flashy or powerful like the Orange Clan or the Purple Clan, but they have their own kind of strength, the strength of knowledge and community. So, while the Invisibles might not have the same supernatural power to high-tech gadgets as other factions, they play a vital role in the story. They're the glue that holds everything together, providing the crucial support that Lucas and Carla need to face the challenges ahead. In the end, the Invisibles remind us that even in our most overlooked and marginalized people can have significant impact on the world. They are the unsung heroes of Fahrenheit, quietly working behind the scenes to make sure the right people have the knowledge and support they need to save the day. Now that we covered the clans of the game, let's look at the themes, starting with one of the most important ones, the power of choice. You know, we make hundreds of choices every single day. From the moment we wake up, should I hit the snooze button and get it right away? Coffee or tea, take the bus or walk to work. Each of these little decisions might seem insignificant, but they add up to shape our day-to-day experiences. The cool thing is our choices have this ripple effect, like deciding to wake up 15 minutes earlier might just mean you have time for a proper breakfast, which could give you more energy for the day. Or choosing to take a different route to work might lead you to discovering a cool new cafe or bumping into an old friend. But it's not just about the small stuff. Our bigger choices, like what career to pursue, who to date, where to live, these can totally change the trajectory of our lives. It's both exciting and a little scary, right? And here's the kicker. Even when we feel like we don't have a choice, we always do. We might not like the opinions, but there's always a decision to be made. Maybe it's when choosing how to react to a difficult situation or deciding to change our perspective on something. The power of choice also comes along with responsibility. Our decisions don't just affect us, they can impact people around us too. Like choosing to be kind to someone having a bad day could totally turn their mood around. I think the real magic happens when we become aware of our choices, when we start making conscious decisions instead of just going with the flow. That's when we really start steering our own ship, you know? When applying this to Fahrenheit, you got Lucas Kane. Poor guy starts off as this unwilling murderer, but from there, it's all about how you play him. Do you make him freak out and act suspicious, or do you have him keep his cool? Every little choice you make for Lucas can change how the story unfolds. It's like being the director of your own supernatural thriller. And then there's Carla Valenti. She's a tough cop, but you get to decide how she approaches the investigation. Does she go by the book, or does she start to believe the weird stuff that's happening? Your choices for Carla can lead her down totally different paths. Even Tyler, who might seem less important, has his moments. You can choose to focus on his work or his relationship with Sam. It's like juggling his personal life and his job, and your choices affect how it plays out. The really cool thing is how these characters' choices intersect. Like the way you play Lucas might change how Carla reacts to him later in the game. It's a big web of cause and effect, and you're the spider spinning it all. And don't even get me started on the endings. Depending on your choice throughout the game, You can end up with the Orange Clan taking over, or the Purple Clan winning, or even Lucas and Carla saving the day. It's like you choose your own adventure on steroids. The game really hammers home this idea that our choices matter, you know? Even when we're caught up in this huge world-changing events, it's still our individual decisions that shape the outcome. It's pretty deep when you think about it. So, Indigo Prophecy, or Fahrenheit, depending on where you are, is all about the power of choice. It's like the game saying, hey, your decisions matter. What kind of story do you want to tell? Now, as for symbolism in the game, one of the prominent symbols in the game is a contrast between light and darkness. This isn't just about good versus evil, it's more nuanced. For instance, Lucas often finds himself in dark, shadowy places when he's struggling with his inner demons or the supernatural forces controlling him. On the other hand, moments of clarity or revelation often occur in well-lit environments. This symbolizes the battle between understanding and confusion, as well as the struggle to find the truth in a world filled with deception. Moving on to the birds. Agatha's house is filled with birds, which symbolizes freedom and the ability to see things from a higher perspective. Despite being blind, Agatha has profound understanding of the supernatural events unfolding around her. The birds in her home represent the ability to see beyond the physical world and offer guidance to Lucas. They also symbolize the idea of being trapped versus being free, as Lucas is often caught between his normal life and the supernatural forces at play. Now, mirrors often appear frequently in the game as a classic symbol of self-reflection and truth. For Lucas, mirrors often reveal more than just his physical appearance. They show his inner turmoil and the duality of his existence. For example, after bandaging his arms, Lucas sees a figure behind him in the mirror, symbolizing the hidden forces controlling his actions. Mirrors in the game serve as a reminder that reality is often more complex than it appears. Now, the original name of the game is Fahrenheit. If we look at the definition of this word, it's a scale for measuring temperature. When every episode begins, the first thing that pops up in the bottom corner is the date, time, and most importantly, the temperature. Throughout the game, we notice it gets colder and colder, meaning the temperature is also a theme and part of the symbolism of the game. The game features a backdrop of global cooling, with temperatures dropping drastically. This is seen when any of the protagonists check out the internet and see the global news about the weather. This symbolizes the encroaching danger and chilling effects of the supernatural forces at play. The cold also represents the emotional and psychological distance that characters feel as they navigate their increasingly complicated lives. It's a physical manifestation of the isolation and the fear that permeates the story. Now, the last topic I want to cover in my analysis is technology versus mysticism. The conflict between the Orange Clan and the Purple Clan represents the broader theme of technology versus mysticism. The Orange Clan's use of ancient rituals and mind control contrasts sharply with the Purple Clan's reliance on artificial intelligence. This symbolizes the ongoing struggle between old world beliefs and modern day advancements, and questions whether technology can ever truly replace the mystical and spiritual aspects of the human experience. Alright, let's dive into the gameplay of Fahrenheit, also known as Indigo Prophecy in North America. This game is quite the ride and has got some pretty unique mechanics that set it apart from other titles at the time. Let's start with the controls. Fahrenheit uses a pretty straightforward control scheme that's easy to pick up. You move your character around with the left analog stick, and the right analog stick is used for interacting with objects in the environment. It's pretty intuitive. You see something and want to check it out, you just flip the right stick towards it. Simple, right? Now here's where things get interesting. The game uses both analog sticks for its signature quick time events. Picture this, you're in the middle of an intense action sequence and suddenly these colored circles pop up on the screen. Each circle corresponds to a direction on the analog stick that you gotta match quickly. It starts off as manageable, but trust me, it gets pretty hectic later on. The controls are generally responsive, but I'll be honest, the quick time events can sometimes feel a bit finicky. You might find yourself yelling at the screen, swearing, "I pressed that," but it's part of the challenge. Now let's talk about the core gameplay dynamics. Fahrenheit is all about interactive storytelling. You're not just watching a movie, you're actively shaping the narrative. The game throws decisions at you left and right, and you gotta make them quickly. These choices can affect everything from character relationships to overall direction of the story. One of the coolest mechanics is the multi-character gameplay. You're not just playing as one protagonist, you actually control 3 throughout the story. It's like you're jumping between different perspectives in a TV show. This adds a whole new layer to the storytelling and keeps things fresh. The game also has this neat mental health system. Each character has a mood meter that fluctuates based on their experiences. If it drops too low, you could be looking at a game over. It adds to an extra layer of management to your gameplay. You're not just making decisions for the story, but also your character's mental stability. Puzzle solving in Fahrenheit isn't your typical find the key to open the door stuff. It's more about piecing together clues and making the right decisions to progress the story. You'll spend a lot of time exploring environments, interacting with objects, and questioning characters to gather information. The action sequences, as I mentioned earlier, are handled through QuickTime events. While some players might find that system a bit simplistic, it does a good job at keeping you engaged during what would otherwise be a non-interactive cutscene. One thing to note is that Fahrenheit isn't an open world game. It's pretty linear in terms of progression, but the choices you make can lead to different outcomes with that linear structure. It's like reading a choose your own adventure book. The overall story is set, but how you get there can vary. Moving on to the user interface, Fahrenheit's UI is designed to be clean and functional, which is essential for a game that relies heavily on storytelling and player choices. When you start the game, you're greeted with a straightforward main menu that lets you jump into the story, adjust settings, or even load a game. It's nothing fancy, but it gets the job done. Once you're in the game, the UI continues to be pretty minimalist. Information is presented in a way that doesn't clutter the screen, which is great because it keeps you immersed in the story. For example, when making dialogue choices, the options appear at the bottom of the screen, and you select them using your right stick. It's intuitive and keeps focus on characters and their interactions. The mood meter for each character is displayed subtly, usually in the corner of a screen. It shows their current mental state, which can go from neutral to stress or even wrecked. This meter is crucial because it affects how your characters react to situations, but it's presented in a way that doesn't distract you from the gameplay. Menus for inventory and settings are straightforward and easy to navigate. You won't find yourself getting lost in a sea of options, which is a plus. Overall, the user interface in Fahrenheit is designed to be user-friendly and keep you engaged in the story without overwhelming you with much information. Now, let's talk about the level design. Fahrenheit's environments are a mix of urban settings, indoor locations, and some surreal areas as the story progresses. The design of these levels plays a significant role in how you experience the game. The layout of each environment is crafted to encourage exploration. You'll find yourself in various locations, from a bustling city to a quiet apartment, each with its own set of interactive objects and clues. The game does a good job of guiding you without holding your hand. For instance, subtle visual cues and lighting often direct your attention to important areas or objects. Exploration is key in Fahrenheit. You'll spend a lot of time investigating crime scenes, searching for clues, and interacting with the environment. The level design supports this by providing plenty of nooks and crannies to explore. It's not an open world game, but the levels are designed to feel lived in and realistic, which adds to the immersion. Each location is carefully chosen to reflect the story's themes and the characters' emotional states. For example, the character's apartment might be cluttered and chaotic, reflecting on their mental turmoil. These details help to deepen your connection to the characters and the story. The game also uses environments to create tension and atmosphere. Dimly lit alleys, eerie and abandoned buildings, and other settings are used effectively to build suspense. The level design works hand in hand with the narrative to keep you on the edge of your seat. One of the things Fahrenheit does really well is balancing the narrative and action. The game doesn't bombard you with constant action. Instead, it uses intense quick-time events and decision-making moments with quieter, more reflective scenes. This balance helps you maintain a steady rhythm and keeps the gameplay from becoming monotonous. You get a nice mix of high-stakes moments and slower character-driven scenes. The dynamic storytelling also contributes to the pacing. The branching storylines and multiple playable characters keep the narrative moving to prevent it from stagnating. Just when you think you've got a handle on a story, the game switches gears, introducing new plot twists and character developments. It's like a roller coaster ride that keeps you guessing. Fahrenheit is excellent at building tension and providing moments of release. For example, after a particularly intense action sequence, you might find yourself in a quieter scene where you can catch your breath and focus on character interactions or puzzle solving. This ebb and flow of tension and release to keep you on edge of your seat. It's a masterclass in pacing. The quick-time events are strategically placed to heighten the game's pacing. These sequences often come at critical moments in the story, adding urgency and excitement. The QuickTime events are varied enough to keep you on your toes, and their increasing difficulty ensures the game remains challenging. It's a great way to keep the adrenaline pumping. When it comes to the technical aspects of Fahrenheit, there's a lot to unpack. Let's start with the graphics quality. For its time, Fahrenheit was pretty impressive. The game features detailed character models and environments that really help immerse you in the world. The facial animations in particular were ahead of its time, capturing a range of emotions that add depth to the characters. Sure, by today's standards, the graphics may look a bit, dated, but they still hold a certain charm. Performance stability is another crucial aspect. Overall, Fahrenheit runs pretty smoothly, but it's not without its hiccups. On most systems, the frame rate is stable, but there are occasional dips, especially during more graphically intense scenes. These aren't deal breakers, but they can be a bit jarring when they happen. In summary, Fahrenheit offers a compelling player experience that is driven by its innovative gameplay and features an engaging narrative. The technical performance has its ups and downs, but the game's strength far outweighs its weakness. If you're a fan of narrative-driven games that offer a mix of action, exploration, and decision-making, Fahrenheit is definitely worth playing. It's a game that immerses you in this world and keeps you hooked from start to finish. There you have it. When it comes to the technical performance of the PlayStation 2's version of Fahrenheit, there are a few things to keep in mind. First off, the graphics. For a game released in 2005, Fahrenheit's visuals were pretty impressive on the PlayStation 2. The player's models and environments are detailed enough to draw you into the story, and the facial animations do a decent job at conveying emotions. Sure, if you compare it to modern games, it might look a bit dated, but for its time, it was quite a looker. Performance-wise, the PlayStation 2 version holds up fairly well. The frame rate is generally stable, but there are occasional dips, especially during the more graphical intense scenes. These aren't game-breaking, but they're noticeable. The game also has some minor bugs and glitches like characters clipping through objects or the camera acting up in tight spaces. These issues are relatively minor but can momentarily pull you out of the experience. One thing to note is that the PS2 version doesn't have the same level of graphical fidelity as the PC port or later console versions. Textures are a bit lower in resolution, and some of the lighting effects aren't as pronounced. However, the core experience remains intact and the game still manages to create a compelling atmosphere. Alright, so the PC version of Fahrenheit is pretty much the definitive version of the game. Here's why. First off, the visuals. The PC port allows for higher resolution than its console counterparts, which means sharper textures and clearer character models. If you got a decent rig, you can crank up the settings and get a much crisper image than what you see on the PS2 or Xbox. The frame rate is also generally more stable on the PC. While the console versions might chug a bit for intense scenes, the PC version tends to keep things smooth, assuming your hardware is up to snuff. Controls. Now here's where things get a bit interesting. The PC version gives you options. You can play with the keyboard and mouse, which works surprisingly well for this type of game. The mouse is great for quick selection during these tense decision-making moments, but if you're more of a controller person, no worries. The game fully supports gamepads too, so you can get that console-like experience if that's what you prefer. One of the cool things about the PC games is the potential for mods, and Fahrenheit is no exception. While it's not extensively modded as some other games, there are still some tweaks and enhancements out there made by the community. These can range from graphical improvements to small gameplay tweaks. The PC version, especially in Europe, is the uncensored version of the game. This means you get to see all the content that was originally intended by the developers, including more mature scenes that were toned down or removed in the North American console releases. If you're running the game off on an SSD, you're in for a treat. The loading times on PC can be significantly shorter than other consoles, which means less waiting and more playing. Alright, so the Xbox port of Fahrenheit is pretty solid, but it does have some differences compared to the PC and PS2 versions. Here's the lowdown. The Xbox version of Fahrenheit holds up pretty well visually. It's on par with the PS2 version in terms of graphics quality. The character models and environments look decent for a game from 2005. The Xbox hardware allows for some nice lighting effects and smooth animations, especially during the motion capture scenes. Performance-wise, it's generally stable. The frame rate is consistent for the most part, though you might have noticed some slight dips during more intense scenes or when there's a lot happening on the screen. It's not a deal breaker, but it's there. Here's where the Xbox version shines. The game was designed with the console controls in mind, and it really shows on the Xbox. The controller layout feels natural, especially during those quick-time events. The analog sticks are impressive, which is crucial for those split-second decisions and sequences. The loading times on the Xbox version are pretty reasonable. They are not lightning fast, but they are not painfully slow either. You'll have enough time to catch your breath between scenes without getting frustrated. The Xbox version doesn't have any exclusive features compared to the PS2 or PC version. However, it does benefit from the Xbox built-in hard drive, which can help with loading times and overall performance. Censorship, like the PS2 version, the Xbox version of Indigo Prophecy in North America had some content censored, particularly some of the mature scenes. The European release titled Fahrenheit was uncensored. One cool thing about the Xbox version is that it's backwards compatible with the Xbox 360, so if you got a 360 lying around, you can still play the original Xbox copy of the game. The PS4 version of Fahrenheit, also known as Indigo Prophecy, brings a remastered experience to the table, and is quite a treat for fans of the original game. Let's break down what makes this version stand out. First off, the graphics. The PS4 remaster features improved visuals compared to the original PS2 and Xbox versions. The textures are higher in resolution, and the lighting effects are more pronounced, giving the game a fresher, more modern look. While it doesn't completely overhaul the graphics to current-gen standards, it does a good job of polishing up the original assets to make them more appealing on modern displays. Performance-wise, the PS4 version is pretty solid. The game runs smoothly, with a stable frame rate that doesn't suffer from the dips you might have experienced in older hardware. The stability is crucial for maintaining immersion, especially during the game's more intense action sequences and quick-time events. One of the significant advantages of the PS4 version is the inclusion of the uncensored content that was cut from the original North American release. This means you get to experience the game as it was originally intended by the developers, with all the mature scenes intact. This adds a layer of authenticity to the narrative and character interactions. The controls on the PS4 are well optimized for the DualShock 4 controller. The layout feels natural, especially during the QuickTime events, which are a big part of the gameplay. The analog sticks are responsive, and the button prompts are clear and easy to follow. This makes the action sequences feel more fluid and engaging. The touchpad on the DualShock 4 isn't utilized in any significant way, but the overall control scheme remains intuitive as user-friendly. Whether you're navigating through dialogue options or interlacing with objects in the environment, the controls feel smooth and responsive. Loading times on the PS4 are significantly improved compared to the original PlayStation 2 and Xbox versions, thanks to the more powerful hardware and faster storage solutions. Transitions between scenes are quicker, which help maintain the game's pacing and keep you immersed in the story. When comparing the PS4 version to the original PS2 and Xbox PC version, several differences stand out. In summary, the PS4 version of Fahrenheit offers a polished and enhanced experience that stays true to the original, while benefiting from its modern hardware capabilities. The improved graphics, stable performance, and inclusion of uncensored content make it a compelling choice for both new players and fans of the original game. If you're looking to experience Fahrenheit in its best form, the PS4 version is definitely worth checking out.
It was like a dream.
I want you to empty your mind and open wide the doors to your unconscious, and let me enter there.
You know, there's much more to our universe than can be perceived by the naked eye.
Be careful. I need you.
Don't ask me to make a choice between my faith and my brother.
I'm not turning myself in until I understand what happened.
We were right to have chosen you.
When Fahrenheit dropped, it was like a breath of fresh air in the gaming world. People were pretty hyped about it, and for good reason. It was doing something different, you know? At a time when games and first-person shooters were dominating the market, here comes this game that's all about story choices and cinematic experiences. Critics were generally pretty impressed. They loved the innovative storytelling approach and how the game blended interactive elements with a movie-like narrative. The multiple playable characters and branching storylines were a big hit. People were like, whoa, I can actually influence how the story plays out. It was a level of agency that wasn't common in games among that time. The game's atmosphere and music got a lot of praise too. Angelo Badalamenti's soundtrack was considered top-notch, really setting the mood for a supernatural thriller. And let's not forget about the voice acting. Folks thought it was pretty solid, which was crucial for a game that was so heavily focused on narrative. Now, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Some players found the controls a bit clunky, especially during those quick-time events. You know how you're trying to enjoy this intense action scene, but you're also friendly trying to hit the right button at the right time. It was a love it or hate it kind of thing. The story also got mixed reactions. While many were hooked on the intriguing start of this supernatural mystery, some felt that it went off the rails towards the end. Without spoiling anything, let's just say the plot takes some unexpected turns. Fans of adventure games were particularly excited about Fahrenheit. It felt like an evolution of the genre, bringing more action elements while still focusing on story and character development. Some saw it as a glimpse into the future of interactive storytelling in games. One thing that caused a bit of a stir was the censorship in the North American version. Some fans were disappointed that certain scenes were toned down or removed entirely. It led to some interesting decisions about mature content in games and cultural differences and what's considered acceptable. Fahrenheit pushed some boundaries with its mature themes of nudity. Some folks were pretty shocked to see full-function nudity in a video game back then. It was frowned upon, like, are we really seeing this in a game? It definitely raised some eyebrows and got people thinking about how far games could go with adult content. Then there was the whole debate whether Fahrenheit was really a game or more of an interactive movie. Some hardcore gamers questioned where the gameplay was. They felt the quick-time events and decision-making didn't quite cut as traditional gaming. It sparked a whole conversation about what defines a video game. The story itself was pretty controversial too. It starts off as a gritty murder mystery, but then takes a wild turn into supernatural territory. Some players loved the twist while others felt like it came out of left field. It was like the game pulled a bait and switch on them. Oh, and let's not forget about the multiple endings. Some people thought it was super cool to have different outcomes based on your choices. Others felt like it made the story less impactful because there wasn't one true ending. The game also got some flack for its portrayal of mental health issues. Some critics felt it didn't handle the topic sensitively enough, which was always a touchy subject. Despite some criticisms, Fahrenheit was generally seen as a bold, innovative title that pushed the boundaries of what games could be. It wasn't perfect, but it was different, and that's what a lot of people loved about it. The game developed a pretty dedicated fan base, with many players replaying it multiple times to see all the different outcomes. In the years since its release, Fahrenheit has gained a bit of a cult status. It's often looked at as a pioneering game in the interactive drama genre, paving the way for harder titles. Fast forward to today, and Fahrenheit, or Indigo Prophecy depending on your location, still holds a special place in the hearts of many gamers. It's often looked back on as a cult classic, a game that dared to be different and succeeded in many ways. Fahrenheit's influence is clear when you look at the success of later on narrative-driven games from both Quantic Dreams and other developers. Later games that came after Fahrenheit owe a lot to the groundwork laid by this game. Its approach to multiple playable characters, branching storylines, and the integration of quick-time events set a new standard for interactive storytelling in video games. These days, modern players who revisit Fahrenheit, especially through the remastered versions on a PC and PlayStation 4, often appreciate its innovative mechanics and storytelling. The improved graphics and performance of the remastered editions help smooth out some of the rough edges of the original release, making it more accessible to new players. However, some of the criticism from 2005 still hold. The quick-time events, while innovative at the time, can feel a bit dated to modern players. These sequences require precise timing, quick reflexes, which can be frustrating, especially when you have to retry them multiple times. Despite this, many players find these quirks are a part of the game's charm. It's a product of its time, and its imperfections are seen as a part of its character. Despite its flaws, Fahrenheit quickly developed a dedicated fanbase. It was seen as a pioneering title in the interactive drama genre, paving the way for future Quantic Dream games and inspiring other developers to experiment with narrative-driven gameplay. The game's ambition and willingness to take risks were appreciated, even if not everything landed perfectly. Today, Fahrenheit is often looked back as a cult classic. It's a game that dared to be different and succeeded in many ways. Its influence can be seen in the evolution of narrative-driven games. It remains a beloved title for many gamers. Whether you're a longtime fan or a newcomer, Fahrenheit offers a unique and memorable gaming experience that continues to resonate. In summary, Fahrenheit's legacy is one of innovation and ambition. It pushed the boundaries of what video games could and should be, blending cinematic storytelling with interactive gameplay in a way that was ahead of its time. While it has its quirks and imperfections, these are all part of what makes the game so endearing. For many, Fahrenheit is more than just a game. It's a nostalgic journey to back in time when the possibilities of interactive storytelling were just beginning to be explored. Alright, let's be real for a second. I love interactive storytelling. If you checked out my channel, Retrospectives, you know this. Games like Police Dots and Snatcher don't just feel like games. They feel like movies where, as players, we're the ones pushing the narrative forward. And Fahrenheit Indigo Prophecy fits right into that vibe. This game takes you in so many directions. For some, it's an incredible roller coaster ride. For others, it's a tangled mess with way too many random quick time events. Honestly, I get both perspectives. On one hand, the story has its highs and lows, some pretty weird twists that brings it all together. On the other hand, there are moments when I'm trying to follow the plot, but I'm too busy nailing those quick time events to catch what a character just said. Like this one scene.
Move quickly. Time is short.
The child must not escape us.
The prophecy must be fulfilled. You may leave us.
I missed everything because I was too focused on buttons. Moving on, I like the characters in this game, but let's be honest, it really only needed two main characters. One of them is just a random stereotype, doesn't really push the narrative forward. And don't even get me started on the pacing. The game throws in a basketball game and a boxing match out of nowhere. To get through these, you need to score a 10, which is frustrating if you're not good at quick time events. I get that they're trying to break up the tension, but it doesn't always work. But hey, it's not all bad. There are some highlights that genuinely surprise me, like the mental health meter. It's innovative for a game to not just let you control what your character does, but also how they feel in certain situations. To my knowledge, no game had done this before, and I really admire that mechanic. It shifts the game from just another title to a psychological experience, making us consider our protagonist's mental state. I also love the supernatural elements. The game starts off with a supernatural vibe and sticks with it, though it could have used more episodes to flesh out the story instead of rushing it towards the end. Overall, Fahrenheit Indigo Prophecy is fun and intriguing. I recommend it to anyone who loves story-driven games. For the average gamer, it might just be, well, average. But that's not a bad thing, because this was David Cage's first shot at interactive storytelling, and spoiler alert, this would not be his last. If you're curious about this game, my best advice is to give it a chance to form your own opinion. Definitely give it a shot. Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this. Hit the notification bell to stay up to date on all our latest uploads. If you have any retrospective requests or suggestions, feel free to drop them in the comment section down below. This is the Retro Phantom, signing out.